Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the entire School of Advanced Military Studies, I want to welcome you to today's presentation. This presentation will be recorded for asynchronous viewing and shared across our social media pages. If you'd like to ask the panel a question, we ask that you input the question into the chat window. The purpose of this brief is to provide an overview of what the Advanced Military Studies program offers prospective applicants. To accomplish this, we've convened a panel of current professors, seminar leaders, and both current and former students to share their insights and experience on why attending SAMS is an opportunity worth pursuing. We kindly ask that you hold all questions until the Q&A portion begins by inputting them into the chat window. Before we begin the brief, I would like to first introduce today's panel.
Jake Lopez, Major Armor, AMSP Seminar 6, and I'll be going to our 1st Cavalry Division.
Lieutenant Colonel Brian McCool. I am a seminar leader and graduate of AMSP and ASLSP.
I'm Dr. Bruce Stanley, the Director of the Advanced Military Studies Program. I'm a 2000 grad of AMSP, and after retirement, came back to work at the Command and General Staff College, and for the last 15 years of that at SAMS.
Dr. Melia Pfannenstiel. I am an associate professor in the AMSP program and the Team 3 leader.
Major Blair Downey. I'm an infantry officer by trade, one of the field select students of AMSP this year, and I'm heading to U.S. Army North.
This is Lieutenant Colonel Taylor. I'm on the outstation. I am a graduate from 2019. I currently work at U.S. Indo-PACOM as a J354 competition branch planner, and looking forward to engaging all of you now and possibly in the future. Thank you.
Great, and I am Colonel Andy Morgado. I'm currently the director of the School of Advanced Military Studies. I'm a graduate of the AMSP program in 2006 and graduated from the ASLSP program in 2014. So first, I'd like to begin by thanking everyone, first our panelists for giving so freely of their time to participate in this. And thank you to all of you who are out there participating in this. Appreciate you taking the time out and willing to invest this time in your career and your personal and professional development to learn about SAMS. Certainly the people within this room are very fond of our institution. We're invested in it. We're very proud of it. We think we're a special institution and with a very special mission, and we're very proud to be a part of it. And so I'm glad that we're here to able to share experiences with you, and hopefully you'll see the same value proposition. I guess I'd like to start by saying that going to SAMS is not the be all end all. There are the majority of officers within our profession do not go to SAMS and go out to just incredibly successful careers in terms of personal and professional fulfillment, whether it be general officer rank or whatever level. You don't have to come to SAMS to be successful. I will say, though, you can come to SAMS, or you should be thinking about coming to SAMS if you want to become a better professional and a better person. And so we provide that opportunity to deepen your professional and personal skills. And we want good officers to take advantage of that opportunity. The way I see it, we take in very good officers and we make them better through our process and particularly through our interaction with our people, which you'll get certainly a representative slice of that today. So hopefully you'll come to that same conclusion. There are many people in our Army that think that SAMS does not have to recruit. And I guess I can see their perspective to some extent. I think there are just a lot of people who are interested in it and will apply. I will say, though, we still have to recruit because there are broad swaths of our Army or even our joint force and interagency partners who aren't sure about us or don't know about us and maybe are hesitant to apply. But we do need to attract a broad swath of our Army from various backgrounds, from every background, to help deepen the experience and help share our techniques across other parts of our Army and joint force. So that's why we're recruiting. We're trying to reach as many people as we possibly can to at least consider us as a method or as a means to develop themselves again as persons and as professionals. So today we do have a few slides we're going to show you, but that will not be our emphasis. I'll move through them relatively quickly. However, the slides will be made available to you, and I encourage you to go back and read them, study them, see what questions you have. And if you get to the questions, certainly during this brief, great. If not, you'll have our contact information. I strongly encourage you to reach out to members of our panel. We're happy to field any questions or provide you any guidance that you're looking for. So with that, if you go next chart, please. So I do want to take a minute to talk a little bit about our foundation at SAMS, because I think it's important to our continuing story. So we were founded back in 1983, and this was part of a greater Army transformation process coming out of the Vietnam War. And so some key leaders like General Holder and General Bostasega, among others, had a vision of first identifying or filling a gap that they perceived. We could feel the big five, we could feel all these technological systems and introduce this thing called air-land battle. But they saw a lack of the intellectual capacity, particularly of officers thinking about what operational art was and how do we connect tactics in time, space, and purpose to meet our strategic ends. So that was the gap that they were aiming to fill, and that's why SAMS was created. So over time, SAMS has evolved a little bit. So AMSP was our first program in 1983. The Advanced Strategic Leadership Studies program followed in 1985. Well, I think back then it was called the SAMS Fellowship, but it was initially designed just to provide seminar leaders for AMSP. It has since evolved into a truly senior service program or senior service college program of its own, and still provides those seminar leaders. And then in 2012, the Advanced Strategic Planning and Policy program was founded, and that is our PhD management program. So I think it's important to understand why we were created and why we still exist. And I would argue that we are still driving that transformative process and that adaptation process of trying to anticipate the nature of warfare, what will come next, and being ready for that and getting our joint force ready for that. So that's our start, and that's our charter of what we'll do much into the future. Next chart, please. A lot of words on this chart. Again, this is one I would hope you come back and please read each one of those blocks, because this is the feedback that we get from the force, from Army and Joint Force general officers that tell us what they expect from our graduates. I'm going to focus just on the really four major headings and then the tree. So first, in the upper right and bottom left. So analyze and assess the operating environment and understand and anticipate mission sets. So we are trying to provide our officers context. First, the context for military action in terms of within the operating environment, and in terms of anticipating mission sets, which really means doctrine. We are going to give, or we aim to give our officers a deep foundation within doctrine. At your follow-on headquarters, where our graduates go on to, when that commanding general, he or she, is looking to answer a doctrinal question, they're going to go find their SAMSer. And so we want to make sure that our officers are ready for that. Bottom right, upper left. So teach, coach, and mentor. So when the majority of our active component officers depart, they'll go to a division or corps. And from the very first day on the job, they're going to lead operational planning teams. And there they'll have to lead those who are junior to them, peers, and even people who are senior to them to work on complex problems and provide recommendations for solutions. So we know that our graduates are going to have to be leaders within that framework on that division or core staff to produce results. So we spend a lot of time on developing skills and providing tools for them to do that. And then finally, in the upper left, engage and enable senior leaders. So just since our school was founded and we're producing graduates to go on to senior headquarters, from the very first day on the job within those headquarters, our graduates have a seat at the table with the most senior leaders of that organization. And from the very first day, they're going to be asked for their opinion, their assessment, and it's a high pressure situation. So we say our graduates need to be able to survive first contact. And so we spend a lot of time on replicating those conditions so our graduates could succeed. And finally, I'll talk about the tree. So many people think that SAMS is just a planner school, that we teach a lot of great skills and tools of how to plan, but really we're doing much more than that. And it's tied to that yellow box along the bottom. It's skilled practitioner of doctrine and operational art, and we want those skills to last the depth and breadth of an officer's career. Whether you go on your multiple KD jobs to go serve in the Pentagon, through brigade command to GO. we know those skills need to be resident in officers to succeed at every level. So that's kind of our expectations and what we want our graduates to do. Next chart, please. Just to give you an idea of who our students are, this is looking at our current class profile. As you can see, we go a broad swath across not only the components within the U.S. Army, but internationally. And you can see along the bottom, along the warfighting functions. So we're pretty evenly distributed. We aim for that as we're building our cohort to ensure that we have a broad representation across our warfighting functions. So this is a snapshot. They change from year to year. In academic year 25, medical service will have, I think, 6 officers there, which is a little bit different. Like I said, it'll vary from year to year. Also, just the last thing I want to highlight on this chart are field selects. So these are just the U.S. Army field selects, but really we have across our other services folks who don't make just the transition from their command general staff course to us. They apply from the field, maybe a couple of years separated from CGSS, and we're able to join our ranks. And we have a panel member today who came through that route that can maybe shed some light on that. Next chart. Here is our method, right? Here's what we're trying to do and how we go about doing it. So first along the left under those characteristics. So as you go through our application process, and I'll touch on what that looks like near the end, here are the things that we're looking for, right? We want a very well-balanced, a well-developed person that can demonstrate that they have these particular characteristics. Those are the things that we're looking for. So as you can see, if you're doing all those things right, we're starting with a very high quality officer. And then we bring you into the house, right, of our developing those expert practitioners of operational art. And we use that we use history, theory, doctrine, and practice to tease those elements out and to develop you as an officer. Within the SAMS staff and faculty, that's where the magic happens. We have some very qualified people, both military professionals and civilian PhDs, that are going to help you through the process and be your mentors, be your coaches to help in your personal and professional development. And then the very bottom, in terms of academic requirements, which our faculty will touch on here in a moment, is using that history, theory, doctrine, and practice. We put you through a very rigorous course of instruction to help prepare you. And then as you look at what comes out the far end from an active U.S. Army and even Reserve and National Guard, normally speaking, you're going to go to a corps or division and test out your trade. And then anywhere from 95 to, I'll talk a little bit about what numbers might look like in the future, but about 125 officers or so across joint Army and international and interagency. Next chart, please. All right, this is where I guess the magic happens, right? And I'll start at the top with the stars of the show. Which makes our curriculum go is that teaching team. So one lieutenant colonel or colonel that has commanded at the battalion level, and most of them go on to the brigade level to be brigade commanders, and a civilian PhD professor that help you and guide you through our course load. So you have a successful military leader, and you have a depth of knowledge and experience by our PhD professors, and the two working hand in hand bring you through, again, a rigorous course of study to prepare you to be an AMSP graduate. And then last but not least is the people and how we build your seminars that facilitate learning from each other. So you're going to have joint, you're going to have international, you're going to have all warfighting functions represented, and that's how you're going to learn together and learn from each other. Next chart. Okay, that was the AMSP portion. I just want to quickly touch on our last two programs for you to file away potentially in your Rolodex as you're looking at options as you go through your career. The first is ASLSP. It is a senior service college program. You first have to get selected to senior service college, and then you can list ASLSP as your option. Just two things I want to highlight that make this program unique. The first are all those red vertical boxes across the timeline. All those are trips or visits to every COCOM that we have and our international visits. So for instance, this year in Europe, it was Sweden, Germany, Estonia. We're in Europe right now the class is in the Philippines. So you get a very broad worldwide perspective on your senior service college curriculum. Then the second thing to highlight is the only 2-year senior service college program in our Army. You get to stay, or most people get to stay for the second year to be an AMSP seminar leader. Next chart, please. And then the last program I'll cover is our ASP3 program. The sweet spot for application for this is when you are KD complete as a major or at the end of your first year of battalion command to begin the application process. So when General Odierno came to us and began this program, he had 3 kind of must-dos. He said, first, that officers in this program must remain competitive for promotion and advancement all the way up to general officer. Second was that our students will attend top-tier universities in order to complete their PhD. And then finally, that for utilization, they will serve at 3- and 4-star level headquarters. So the people that we're preparing and grooming in this program are to be that expertise provided by a PhD to serve at the most senior levels of our Army, and that mandate of being competitive. So as you can see, it can be a long pathway to get there, but we've had a multitude of brigade commanders. We had our first general officer from this program last year, and they're now just coming into the window based upon the 12 cohorts that we have. And I'm sure we'll see more general officers come out of this cohort. But again, I just want to provide this to all of you as a possibility as you contemplate your way ahead within this profession. Next chart, please, and this will be my last chart. And just to give you an idea of what they're studying, what our ASP3 students are studying, which is in the upper left, and then the types of schools that they're going to. Again, we're looking for top-tier universities or those particularly on certain majors that have a niche kind of expertise of go to the very best school that has that subject matter expertise at it to develop our PhD candidates. So I know that was pretty quick, but I wanted to get through a very quick overview before turning it over to the real stars of this particular production, which is our faculty, students, and alumni. So without further ado, if you can please go to the next chart, and I'll turn it over to Dr. Stanley and Dr. Pfannenstiel to talk about, from a faculty perspective, about our curriculum and our approach. Bruce.
Thanks, sir. I appreciate it. I just want to orient you to the slide that we put up here and talk through a few of the things that I think might be important for you. So first and foremost, the course begins the last week of June and concludes the following year right before Memorial Day. So it's about a 10.5-month course that you would go through. As Colonel Morgado mentioned, you break down into seminar groups. We typically have 8 seminars. Right now, it's 112 students, which comes out to about 14 students per seminar, given that breakdown that Colonel Morgado mentioned. But as you take a look at this, the courses that are in blue with the light background, those are our main courses. And so we have 6 of those. And additionally, in the darker color there, you'll see the exercises, and we have 6 exercises throughout the year. One of those exercises being a staff ride to Western Tennessee and Mississippi to cover the grants campaign to open up the Mississippi River. As you look through this, the courses vary in length from anywhere between 12 to 17 lessons. And I'm here shortly, I'll turn it over to Dr. Pfannenstiel. She'll talk you through one of the courses. But if you look off to the right, the approach that we take throughout the course and then internal to each one of the blocks of instruction is a history, theory, doctrine, and practice approach. And so you're not just doing one thing or one discipline. So we take multiple disciplines to create an interdisciplinary outcome. Some of the threaded concepts that you'll see along the right-hand side, large-scale combat operations, joint and multi-domain operations. Obviously, we're focused very sharply on the Russia-Ukraine war. China is certainly, in the Indo-PACOM region, is certainly a highlight throughout the course year. Morality and ethics, we talk about that. Information, narrative, deception, influence operations, complexity, systems, and interdependence it flows throughout all of this. Strategic culture and context is important. And then next year, we'll be adding a more robust set of courseware on AI and machine learning, and also data literacy. Throughout the year, you'll also write a monograph that you'll be paired with other students and a monograph director, which will be one of our PhDs. And you'll write a 10,000 word or about 40-page monograph on an operational or strategic topic that's of relevance to the current operating force. At the end of the year, you can see down there, we cap it off with an oral comprehensive exam. And that's the place where we do really that check, where we go back to that slide that Colonel Morgado mentioned. That's our outcomes, really to see are you set and well prepared to go out to those division and corps to do the types of jobs that are going to be required. The exercise program, as I mentioned, flows throughout the year. We start out with the decision-making exercise, followed by the staff ride. After our design and systems thinking course, we have what's called an integrated planning exercise. That's typically at the high operational, low strategic level. We just finished up our large-scale combat operations exercise. That's division level. In a couple of weeks, we'll do our core level exercise. And then we finish the year off with, we're calling it joint multi-domain operations, where the United States Marine Corps comes in with their MAG staff training program. So we pair with them to do that. The large-scale combat operations exercise, we pair with MCTP for not only instruction, but also for their observers, trainers to come in and help us out. It's a full year. It is a rigorous course. There is a lot of reading, and you're expected to do it throughout. You get plenty of opportunities to do briefings, individual papers, and group projects. I'm going to pass it off to Dr. Pfannenstiel, and she's going to zoom in on the first course and kind of walk you through kind of what that would kind of look like, to give you some details. Melia?
I'm also the course lead for Theoretical Foundations, which is the first class students have in June when they arrive. We like to call this class Thinking About Thinking in a casual sense, but we're really trying to get students some kind of introduction or theoretical foundation to thinking, communication, decision-making. And so we walk through several themes that are covered throughout the outcomes chart, which is the tree chart that Colonel Morgado introduced. So some of the themes that we run through are communication and mindset, where we talk about a little about civil military relations and communication, communicating in an OPT, which requires you to communicate with a staff who's often inexperienced. So you have to lead that staff, but you also have to communicate with the commander in a way that you do not act like the commander, you're thinking like the commander. And then we move into certain topics such as morality, nationalism, certain themes that a planner would need to know about or think about to frame the operational environment. We also introduce thinking theoretically, and depending on the specific topic or the needs of the force, we'll focus on different theories that we evaluate. This year, we focused in on deterrence theory. So we studied deterrence theory in some depth and how that informs strategy. And we walk through the history, theory, and then the national strategy of the U.S. And we also turn to individual cognitive behaviors, thinking about biases and how that relates to planning as well. So thinking about time and space, topics such as surprise, and then that walks into an introduction to operational art, where we start to discuss linking the tactical to the strategic level and toward different political aims. So at the end of that course, we go into a decision-making exercise, and then the foundational theoretical foundations leads into the operational level classes in history, and then multi-domain operations. You all can add anything else?
Excellent. Thanks, Dr. Pfannenstiel and Bruce. We'll go now to our students. Go ahead, forward, please. One slide. And Jake.
Good afternoon, everyone. Jake Lopez. So what made me want to come to this course? There's several things, but narrowing it down to two was the people I worked with at different positions before I came here. These were graduates of AMSP, and I was very impressed with their ability to solve and understand problems using multiple models and applying history and theory and doctrine. And of course, being able to put that in front of the commander and get their points across if they were able to create a course of action to get shows from without doing a blended cola or something like that. But I was very impressed with their ability to do that kind of stuff, as well as improving myself. And this ranges from understanding theory and applying doctrine to becoming a better tactician at the division and corps levels with our exercises that we execute here. As part of the course, what I've learned is the importance of ensuring shared understanding at multiple levels, at all levels. And this is done through, of course, executing peer leadership through the OPTs that we conduct here at AMSP. And these OPTs range from the design and systems thinking to MDMP level type of operations. And then obtaining a greater understanding of operational art and how to apply theory, history, and doctrine to develop a situation and nest those objectives from the tactical level all the way to the strategic level, really.
And so my name's Blair. Just go through it. What really drew me to SAMS is I wanted this level of education. In my experience, I just hit a service anniversary, like I just hit 16 years on the officer side, and staff has been a lot of that. And as I admired the people who were real leaders on staff, they had this level of education, and they didn't make it their whole identity. They just said, you know what, this is one of the things that invested in me, and I think you should absolutely check it out. And that's what really turned me onto it. But ultimately, it just came down to I wanted to continue to be able to give more than I took from an organization. And I knew that this was going to be that sort of investment that I could rebound that out. So my background, I right before I came here, I just finished my second year of KD, third of my major time where I went. I was a division staff primary when I went up, and I was the G35 during a warfighter year for a division, and then went down and did KD time down in a battalion. I think the biggest thing that really, I would say, the benefit for a field select, and it seems sort of counterintuitive, like why would you give up so many options to come do this and then go do a utilization? I think it's really tied to those, really the course outcomes of expected graduate, right? Like that idea of humility, the self-awareness, and then moreover the competence that you're able to bring in. In terms of like what you get from the course, I'd say that you've been very successful in your life. You know it works. And your intuition is great for like a 25-meter ambush, right? You can will your way through most things. I've learned why my intuition and why my past experiences may not be the best thing to do. I've also learned a little bit more about the willingness to be persuaded of, I've never seen that wargaming method before. That's not what I've seen done. But hey, we can do it. It can open it up. But I think the interesting thing is that no one after I was briefing a GO, no one after I just led like a battalion level car for something said, hey, let me give you some feedback on how you performed there. Let me tell you whether or not you were actually nested with these things. And then also, it was MDO came out while I was busy trying to reset an entire brigade's worth of combat power from Korea and redeploy it simultaneously. I was not familiar with the updated operating concepts. I was not familiar with the changes of doctrine. And I got the ability to reflect and think about that. And I think that's the overall biggest thing too, is as you come out of that sprint of KD, you're given the opportunity really, truly to reflect on what it means to be a future lieutenant colonel, a future trainer of officers in the United States Army. And then how can you best influence and use your experience to the good of the team, not for your own benefits. And I think that was ultimately what this course has meant to me, what I've seen so far, and what I would recommend to every post KD officer who's thinking about applying. Do it. It's the best decision you can make, and it's a tremendous investment of what they just invest in you one-on-one. Sure.
Great. Thanks, Blair. So we got faculty, we got students, and now we'll shift to alumni. So Chad, I think you're up.
Thank you, sir. Appreciate it. Hey, team, how you doing? Again, Lieutenant Colonel Chad Taylor here at US Indo-PACOM. So the director has asked me to kind of talk about the graduate experience, at, my perspective, the year group timeline, because there's probably some angst out there about that. My experience of going into a division staff, into a battalion, then brigade, and if we have time, experience at Indo-PACOM. So right off the bat, the graduate experience, what I took from it and I used every single day, no matter what echelon I was working at, was SAMS gave me the ability to advance my ability to communicate with senior leaders. You were going to do that right off the bat. And I think we've kind of already touched on that. Example, I got into Hawaii because I served at 25th Infantry Division. Once I PCSed there from SAMS, within 36 hours, I was called while I was in Waikiki at the hotel to show up to work. And I was going to be in the post-command exercise getting ready for a warfighter. Family is in the hotel room. I'm working 20-hour days, and with about an hour to an hour and a half drive going back. So that is what they're going to expect of you. Maybe not that same situation, but they're going to expect you to come in and make an impact immediately. And I was standing in front of the 2-star within those 36 hours, briefing on the hot eggs. So your ability to communicate with senior leaders is imperative. And communicating with senior leaders, they help you to understand at SAMS the insights into what FOGO level leaders are thinking about. They help you to raise your emotional intelligence, how to read a room, how to connect with your audience, because you're going to need to be able to do that. Because sometimes you are persuading your boss to different courses of action and what the risk is and what the mitigations are, and you got to be able to communicate that clearly. The second thing for me was the planning iterations. Yes, CGSOC gives you planning at MDMP. I think it was lackluster, just being honest. SAMS gives you 4 to 5 iterations of planning, and you're going to rotate the different positions. You're going to learn from logistics to maneuver. Even if you're an infantryman, you'll be doing, G4, S4 type things. You are going to be required to plan when you get to either a division or a corps. That's what they expect you to do, and to be able to lead OPTs that you as a major will have lieutenant colonels. Sometimes I had 06s in the room, and planning throughout to give, those options to the commanding general. So the planning iterations for me was huge because I didn't feel like I was ready as a major to go out and conduct MDMP at a division level. So lastly, I think when it comes to my experience, those are the 2 biggest things I took away and the things that I used every single day. As we shift into the year group timeline, I know there's probably angst out there about, is this going to mess up my timeline for promotion? Will I get 2 years of KD in? I can only speak from a maneuver perspective as an infantryman, but when you come into a division or a corps, they know who the SAMS planners are. They know what your timeline looks like. They get them every single year. So the chief of staff, the G3, the commanding general, they all understand that we are going to use them for a year, or the graduates at division for a year or corps, and then we're going to move you into your KD position because you have 24 months to get your 2 KD positions completed before your lieutenant colonel board. Mine went flawlessly with no issue whatsoever. The only time I saw a problem is when a officer decided to go to SAMS, did not understand their own timeline, lay that timeline over the HRC's timeline and SAM's timeline, and then find the disparities. So it's on you as a professional officer to understand your own timeline, your own situation. But from a maneuver perspective, if you're coming out of CGSC into SAMS, graduating and going to a division or corps, your timeline is fine because the leadership understands the timeline that you have to be on in which to be able to be successful in your lieutenant colonel board. Moving from there, my experience at a division is pretty much what I said about what I took from, the course. You are immediately in front of the senior leaders, and you're immediately giving them courses of action and identifying risk and the mitigations thereof. And you're also in front of the brigade commanders, and battalion commanders, who are going to be your future bosses as you move into a battalion for your KD position. So my experience was very positive because you'll see, and this, not being pompous, but you'll see the disparities in many times between a SAMS graduate and someone who didn't go to SAMS, not because the talent is any different, but because you got those iterations of planning. You got the sidebars with Dr. Stanley when it comes to emotional intelligence and things like that. You get little tidbits that you're not going to get from other PMEs or other schools that are going to help you help the headquarters and help senior leaders many times more than others. So for me, it was a great experience at the division battalion, and then I became the Brigade 3 for 3rd Brigade, 25th Infantry Division. And you're doing the same thing again, just on a larger platform, moving more people, more equipment, and you get more freedom, to be honest. You get more leash because you've proven yourself to that point. So I can't speak enough about the school and what it does for you just personally, and then what people expect of you, no matter what echelon you're serving at. Lastly, real quickly, I'm here at Indo-PACOM, so I'm at a combatant command, and again, the difference here is probably the stakes. I got in front of Admiral Aquilino probably within the first 8 weeks of me being at Indo-PACOM. That's a little different when you're standing in front of a 4-star who speaks directly to the President and the Secretary of Defense, but they expect the same exact things that you're going to learn at SAMS. They expect those things here at a combatant command, just on a deeper level. So you'll have to pull the joint information, the joint doctrine that you talk about and learn about, and the iterations of exercises and planning. They expect those same things just at a deeper level, and to connect it to standing guidance from the national level. So that's pretty much all I have, sir. Overall, love SAMS, did everything a lot for me, and I appreciated the opportunity to attend. Thanks.
Great. Thanks, Chad. And Brian.
All right, good afternoon. I'm Lieutenant Colonel Brian McCool, currently serving as a seminar leader with AMSP. I'm a graduate, like Colonel Taylor, of AMSP from 2019. I was a field select, and also I serve in a functional area, information operations. My basic branch is field artillery. So my bumper sticker is that this school is for field selects. The majority of the students are probably coming out of intermediate level education, but there are field selects in every seminar, and so this school is for you as a field select. And also for functional area officers as well. The bumper sticker that I want to start and then I'll end with is that the difference, in my opinion, between the education that you get, the PME education you get at whatever intermediate level education college you go to, is that you're trained, on criteria that's been established by the Joint Staff and by your service, things that they think you need to know to be a successful field grade officer. The SAMS program builds on that by helping you become a critical and creative thinker who can build teams and solve complex problems. The majority of the problems that I think I have encountered since I graduated from SAMS are problems I never imagined I would be asked to solve, and a lot of those didn't involve MD and P. And so this school gives you a good foundational training and education that you can use to solve problems that you have that you had no training or previous experience to solve. So for me personally, coming here as a field select, I went to the reason I was field select is because I attended ILE at the Naval Postgraduate School with a utilization on a joint assignment. For me, that was U.S. Cyber Command, where I worked in the J5 conducting campaign planning and contingency planning. And the staff there, even at that joint level, was struggling to link strategic objectives to tactical actions with the new cyber mission force. And there was 2 people that stood out on the staff in the J5 that were able to do this effectively, and neither one of them had a background in cyberspace operations. One was an infantry officer and the other one was a logistics officer. But one was a Marine who had graduated from SAWS, and the other was an Army officer who had graduated from SAMS. And they led the campaign and contingency planning for the command. And so that attracted me to say, how did you get the tools that you needed as someone who has no experience in cyberspace operations to be able to pull this all together and build a combatant command level campaign plan? And they talked me through some of the things that I later found for myself as a student of AMSP. And then when I graduated from here as a field select, I went to an Army Service Component Command and served in the G5 for a short period of time before becoming the director of the Commander's Initiatives Group. And there I did the same thing, linking, get the commander's vision and linking that to tactical actions and helping the command out. I was selected for Senior Service College and came back here to attend the Advanced Strategic Leadership Studies program, which is a 2-year program. The first year is Senior Service College for JPME Level 2, and then most of us will stay for a second year to be a seminar leader. I think that, in addition to all of the tools that you get from being here as a student, that I feel like I'll be value added when I leave here. I'll probably go serve when I come back to command staff again. And I think that I've been set up for success to be able to do that. Again, because the level of problem solving that you get here is building on to the very important education that you get at intermediate level education, but with these additional tools that allow you to think critically and creatively, to build teams and solve problems that you had no previous experience or training to solve.
Great. And thank you, Brian, for that. Okay, so I'm going to cover 2 additional charts briefly, and then we'll go into questions. So if you do have questions, please start loading them up if you haven't done so already in the chat. So next chart, please. All right, so along the left-hand side is our application process, and I'll talk timeline on the next chart just to give you an of what is going to be expected from you as you build your application. So obviously there's some administrative data to start out with. You'll get scheduled for an exam that has 50 questions along those 5 areas, and as well as we'll give you a prompt for an essay, and then we'll evaluate that writing. Once that's complete, you'll do an interview with a senior SAMS faculty member. And then once that packet is complete, A, B, and C, it goes before a board of 6 individuals with 3 military, 3 civilians on it, not all contained within SAMS. Some come from the broader Army. We frequently have alumni from around the world who sit on that board. And then you are approved finally by the CAC-CG, finally approves the AMSP list and sends that to HRC for final adjudication. Just give you an idea of a number of applicants along the right-hand side, starting from 2022 on the bottom and working way back up. 311 applicants who went to the board. There were more applicants, but for various reasons, not all could go to the board based upon incomplete applications or things of that nature. And you can see the selection rate. So it is a very involved application process. It is very selective, as you can see by the overall results. One of the things that I didn't talk about at the front end, but I did state that there's a lot of really good officers who never go to SAMS, who go on and do great things in our Army. We take good officers and we make them better. That's what we do at SAMS. What we do, though, has proven to be successful if you use the Army's promotion and CSL selection rates. Generally speaking, selection rate to lieutenant colonel is about 5 to 8% yearly, so better than a non-AMSP graduate. And when you look at CSL select for lieutenant colonel, we're at the 30% greater likelihood of being selection if you have AMSP complete. So I think that says a little bit about SAMS. Certainly, we trust we've had something to do with that, but I would say the greater proportion of that is just the quality people that we've selected to come into the program. I think that's more indicative of the promotion rates, but it certainly does not hurt you to come to SAMS. I think as the stats bear out, it actually helps. So just something to think about as you're making those, professional and future decisions. Next chart, please. Again, briefly, you can look at the ASLSP and ASP timelines along the bottom. I just want to concentrate on AMSP. The MILPER, right now, we're scheduled for a 5 June release. It happens sometime in the month of June. Just be on the lookout for that, but that's our target. We can see the application window. Some of you might be familiar with what we've done the last couple of years. We've had 2 separate application groups that was simply driven by the AIM marketplace. And so we kind of split out active component and joint from active component. We're going to do 1 group this year. So it's a little bit different. So I just want to make sure everyone is aware of that. Everyone, to include joint force, multi-component, all on the same timeline. And we're looking for a selection release list at 14 October. And that corresponds with the mid-market review for the AIM-2 process. Okay, so that's why the dates are configured that way. And so that is all I have to formally present. Just please go to the next chart. You'll just see our names up there, the current panel members and school leadership. And I'll turn it over to Colonel McCool. Do we have any questions in the hopper?
Yes, sir, we do. And I'll remind everyone that if you have a question, keep plugging those into the chat and we'll work our way through them. I'm going to go back to one of the earlier questions that was posted regarding the eligibility of Department of the Army civilians to apply to SAMS. And Dr. Stanley will address that question.
The short answer is yes. We've had DA civilians apply in the past and have been selected. I think the last one we had was from U.S. Army North, and then we've had some folks from Northcom also. So we've had a handful over the years, though it's not common.
Okay, and another question asked about whether or not you could attend AMSP if you attended a sister service, intermediate level education, and the answer is yes. I am one of them. I attended the Naval Postgraduate School, and one of my students in this year's class attended the Naval War College, and they are here now.
Yeah. Additionally, we get folks from Maxwell. We do get one or two from Quantico. We do get them from Newport. So if you're at ILE at another location, we can certainly accept your application, and you're usually very competitive.
Did you go to school service?
No, sir.
No. Hey, and I'll just add to that. So on an annual basis, we will visit and do some recruiting at each one of those institutions to ensure everyone is aware of that. So yeah, we do see probably five, anywhere from 3 to 5 a year generally come from another senior service college.
When is the timeline to apply for SAMS, and what do you look for as far as evaluation, strength, CGSOC performance, or else?
Yes, that's a great question. So I think we provided you the timeline in the slide deck, so you can kind of see how that falls out. The previous slide before that was the application. So we're looking for the whole person. Okay, so we're looking at not just test scores for the written essay and the multiple choice part, but we're looking at your previous evaluation reports. I think we go back 4. Is that correct? We're also we do an interview with you. We're looking at your physical fitness scores, and so it's a broad look at each individual. Every packet gets looked at the same. All right. Everyone gets an interview. Everyone gets the test. So I think the better answer would be if you want to get into SAMS, you actually have to volunteer and then go through the process. And then the board is, in my humble opinion, probably super fair and in my humble opinion, very accurate and spot on. And very confident of their recommendations and the outcomes that we do.
As a follow-up, Dr. Stanley, a question was, do we have quotas for branches or functional areas when we're filling out our candidate list?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So if you take a look at the, I think there's a slide in there that shows the breakdown of the class.
Slide 4.
Slide 4. So if you take a look, so imagine you have 311 applicants. I would say there are no quotas. It's really based on the number of folks that are applying, and obviously those branches pretty much over to the left, and they're in the center. There's just more applicants from, say, MI, aviation, or infantry, armor. Engineer, field artillery are really our biggest population of applicants. However, we don't have a quota. The quota is really based on who is applying. Some years, we don't have folks from branches that apply. Other years we have, preponderance from one branch or another. So we do not have a quota.
Yeah, I'll just add a couple of things here. So just, ditto on that, reinforce that there is no quota. From year to year, there are some branches, so as you're communicating with a branch, will just put out guidance, or there'll be, I'm trying to look for the right word. They'll try and dissuade you or discourage you, from applying for one reason or another. I mean, I completely understand their perspective. Branch managers, are trying to fill field grade slots across the operational force, and that's really important. However, don't take no for an answer. If you want to go, apply, compete, because if you are selected, we will go arm wrestle the branch for you. I mean, we were successful, particularly for aviation branch and air defense for this upcoming year. I mean, it's a professional arm wrestle. We're not, poking each other in the eye or fighting over, but we just state the case, and then there's a resolution. And certainly the senior members or senior leaders of those branches appreciate and want SAMS graduates within their ranks, and so it becomes a professional discussion and what's best for the officer and what's best for the Army. So don't be dissuaded by what your branch says. Still compete. Now, please look at the MILPER. There are some branches out there that does require an HRC waiver in order to apply. So again, it's just a waiver, and most of them are approved. So just be cognizant of that. For instance, the chaplain corps will have our first SAMS chaplain student will be here with us next year. It happens, and there are other branches that are like that. So yeah, again, don't be dissuaded by what your branch says. Don't take no for an answer.
Okay, and we have a question for the current students. Describe a day, a week in the life of a SAM student, the workload, the kind of the battle rhythm, and also let's talk a little bit about quality of life, like time, family time. Let's start with Major Lopez, and then we'll go to Major Downey.
So if CGSC was the greatest year of your life, this is the greatest year of your life 2.0. There's lots of stuff, there's plenty of time to work on yourself, spend time with your family, and develop yourself professionally. Starting on, we'll say, Monday morning, as I'm able to wake up in the morning, YouTube a video of whatever it was that I read the night before, whether it be a campaign or battle or something, just to get a better perspective, and then walk my kids to the bus stop. I'll go into class at about 08:30 or 08:30, and then class will go on until about 12. And during that class, everyone's engaged in conversation. We're talking about the readings that we did the night before and how that applies to future operations. After class, I'll go to the gym for about an hour and a half, and then go home and again, have dinner with my family, and then continue to read. For the reading load, it's about 100 pages, 145 pages a night, which is not undoable, especially if you take a reading course before you get here, which really helps out. And for the monograph, writing in chunks really helped me out. I think I'm about done with mine. My monograph director is sitting next to us, and it's portions. It's what do you want to write? Is what you're writing on, does it exist? Is there enough information on it? Is there enough research done? And then gathering the tools so that when you actually sit down to apply it to the keyboard, it comes out and it flows better than stopping and starting and stopping and starting again. And I'll pass it down to Blair.
Yeah, so just like you said, the day-to-day 8:30 to about noon is really your regular in-class time. Now, what's not shown there, and I don't know if we have the calendar, but the battle rhythm of just the weeks in general, there'll be the days that are just dedicated for you to also do reading reflection. So as you talk about what the balance is, and then what the rhythm and like what the fit and then quality of life, I think it's awesome. My perspective is I would wake up when it was dark, go in at about 4:30, get some of my work done, do PT, then just immediately start answering everyone's mail, everyone's questions. I had a line of staff that was stacked on my door throughout the day. And then that was when I was not in meetings or answering my boss's priorities. Like, the day didn't belong to me. I think one of the coolest parts about this is, like, I have every reason to be able to hit my priorities well in advance. So just like you said, the reading takes about 3 or 4 hours, but the course is designed that you get the reading done during the day. The days are designed so that you can get all your work done during the day. You're not going home at like 1800 and then spending all the way until like 2200 or midnight working on doing these things. And then moreover, there's an ebb and flow through the months and the weeks where there's just natural like periods of intensity and then low periods where you can reset, get ahead, start doing other things. In terms of quality of life, it's awesome. A tremendous break from the fires of the sinking battleship of KD into all of a sudden this relative calm where time belongs to me. I could go at a very slow tempo in relation to what it was, and it's just designed to best facilitate your ability to accomplish your own work. Hopefully that answered the question. If you guys have any follow-ups, you can hit us up, or our emails are here too.
Okay, and I got a question, two questions I'm going to pull together here about how is AIM affecting the timeline for utilization, and then how does the utilization tour work?
Yeah, let me, I'll address it first, then turn it over to others if you want to. So for the selection, all right, so we start the selection process. We get through all the testing and all the interviews. The board meets and the recommendations are all finished and to the CAT commander prior to midpoint?
Yeah, the
mid-market review. All right, so the selections are done by the end of the mid-market review. All right, so that's how it affects it on the front side. All right. So you'll know one way or the other whether you're going to wind up competing in AIM. So if you don't get selected, you still are very competitive in the AIM cycle. On the backside of this, there is a special market just for AMSP graduates. Okay, so for instance, the slide on there that shows the SAMS distribution, the G357 sets the number for the distribution. All right, go to slide 12. Was it? Yep. So that's really the goal is to fill the divisions and cores first, right? And then it's the remainder as available of the student population that we have based on branches and whether they're KD or not. So this year, as I understand it, 99% of our students got their number one pick, right? 1-to-1 match. And so if somebody wanted to go to a third core, they got to go to third core, right? And we have what I would say a very, very good relationship with the HRC SAMS team that's there. It's a super working relationship, lots of communication going on up through the AIM cycle and selection for next year or for the follow-on assignment. So I think it's really a success. It's always been that way, but it's really a lot more above board now. So you're not competing with the rest of the folks that want to go to 1st Infantry Division. You're competing with your class to go to the 1st Infantry Division. And it really sort of works itself out. I'm going to pause there, sir.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else?
Yeah, AJ, just a couple of things on this. So in addition to the people who are sitting in class with you here at AMSP, MAJs, SAWs, and SAS also have Army students, and they are aligned against these requirements. So it's really those are the only people that are in the marketplace. So all these chairs are going to get filled by the people at those 4 institutions, and we do have a very good relationship with our HRC team. This is the best I've seen it ever, of what I've seen. So all that is positive. I just want to go back to the previous question for the students. They did a great job answering the question. I would say on top, I just kind of come over the top of that is our general rule is if you come in planning on doing a 40-hour work week, you're going to be just fine, right? So you look back on a KD major, I mean, if you're doing a 40-hour work week, you're doing really well, right? It's probably only 40 hours, only about maybe 2/3 of what you're actually doing if you're lucky. So, but yeah, thanks for that.
And then once we're in the utilization assignment, Dr. Stanley, do you want to talk about how the expectations there? So a student asked or a candidate asked, what they're doing 1 year on the division or utilization staff, then the idea is to transition to a key developmental job. Okay.
Chad mentioned this a little bit. Chad, do you want to jump on that one, or you want me to address it?
Yeah, I can, sir, doctor. So kind of like I said before, I understand there's some angst and it depends on your branch, but the senior leaders know who you are. If you notice on that last chart, there's only 4 of you going to a division. When me and the other 3 of my teammates came into the 25th Infantry Division, we immediately went to the Commanding General's office and had to sit down, just the SAMS graduates. And then we went to the Chief of Staff. He talked through the timeline with us. So they understood that they had about 12 to 14 months with us at division, and then they would ensure that we were placed into KD, at which point then you're doing 24 months, and then your board, I can't remember exactly when your OERs were due, but I think it was within about 3 months to 4 months of me completing KD. They went into the board, Lieutenant Colonel board was complete, and everything was fine. But again, I can't stress enough, you got to understand your own situation as well, talking to your branch to know that if you're not a typical maneuverist and you're some niche MOS or job, how does the timeline with SAMS and the utilization mesh with your board for Lieutenant Colonel? And you know, that's kind of up to you. And I know the SAMS staff can help with that, but I guarantee you there's historics for every single job in the Army, or almost, that's gone through SAMS, and they've seen this before. So thank you, sir.
Yeah, thanks, Chad. I think the short answer would be you're going to go to Division or Corps staff for about a year. Then you're going to go do a KD job, battalion, S3 or XO. Then it's up to you to get yourself selected to go to either be a second KD job in that battalion or the Brigade 3 job. But you're highly competitive, all right? So after you've done your SAMS tour on division, everybody knows you, you knock it out of the ballpark down at Battalion 3, the likelihood of getting picked up to stay a second year in the battalion or a second year in the brigade is very, very high. So we've seen it where our graduates have done up to 4 years in a division where they do KD, 2 KD jobs, and they go up to brigade and they're on their 3rd KD job, right? So I'm not sure how many other folks are that competitive in a division in that sense.
All right, sir. And then another follow-on, are any of the cyber or special forces or medical branches, do they have a separate process for utilization, or how is their utilization decided?
Yeah, the more specialty the branch, the more of a more interesting conversation it becomes. HRC's goal is to first fill division and corps. That's their priority. So if at all possible, they're going to fill all those slots. Doesn't matter really what branch you are, because really there's really no branch tied to that SAMS position. However, that being said, if you do go back to that distribution chart, there are those other headquarters, especially in the soft community, cyber community. If there's an officer within our program that fits that description and will be a better fit there, HRC will make the move. Generally speaking, the board of directors there, for that branch, that will make that ultimate decision. So it's kind of that kind of sequence. We'll start to try and fill corps and divisions first. If you're in that special branch category and there's an open position in a headquarters that could make better use of your talents, that's probably where you're going to get slotted. So again, we're trying to do no harm to an officer's career, so that will come into play.
There are some of the branches, some of the smaller branches are managing their SAMS graduates by individuals. And so, for instance, this past year, not this current year, but past year, the Medical Service Corps brought 2 of their key leaders down and worked with the medical service officer, essentially laying out their next 3 or 4 years, and which I'm absolutely stunned by. But it's not unusual for that to occur, particularly in the lower density branches that are out there.
And then there was a question about field select utilization. So I'll take that as a field select graduate. I'll talk functional area and basic branch. So as a functional area AMSP graduate, field select, I was sent to an Army Service Component Command to serve on the staff there. For me as a functional area officer, that was also KD for me. So I actually did a full tour on that staff, and then was selected for senior service college after that. A peer of mine from my seminar, who was also a field select, did his 1-year utilization at USERAF, so also an ASCC. During that time, he was also selected for battalion command. So he did 1-year utilization, and then he went into battalion command.
I'll give you an example from last year. So we had a field select, came here, got picked up on the lieutenant colonel list, was invited to BCAP, was assigned to the 1st Armor Division. He's currently the G5, and he's also pre-positioned for his command. So that's like I guess the best case scenario in that event. But again, HRC is working very closely with those folks that come here, make lieutenant colonel, and then make command or alternate, and they're putting them in the places where they think they're going to go to.
I think another consideration as well is you're not competing. It's branch immaterial slots. So I was one of 74 other people that was directly interfacing with not only my branch manager, but a very responsive, fantastic SAMS desk branch management. And so as they were talking about, this October was my PSB for lieutenant colonel, as they were starting to talk about what the next couple of years look like, it really helps you very well target, hey, I was considering I'd like to command in these areas. I was considering doing these things or gaining these experiences. I'm very underdeveloped in Indo-PACOM, or I've never been to Europe and don't understand the mission set. These opportunities are there, and it's a very easy way, specifically when you don't need follow-on KD, to target those ASCCs, to target an echelon you've never been at before. You've never done core time. You've never been at enterprise level Army. Those are all there for you to do as well. And then moreover, it's just a more concentrated population where your phone calls are answered immediately. People are actively working for you. Colonel Morgado sat down and just counseled me on what my next timeline looked like. And I was just one of the many students that has that opportunity to get that level of personal interaction as well as personal investment, all trying to, hey, help me achieve my goals as best as possible.
Okay, we've got a few questions about the application process. So the first one is, does the application timeline for AMSP occur after the summer AIM market cycle?
No, it coincides. Oh, I'm sorry. On the front end for application, it coincides roughly. I think we start a little bit earlier, and then we get into the board process right as the market opens, and then at the mid-market review, we make our decision. And so what that affords you is that if you're not selected, you are not completely out of the run with make sure you're preferencing or being preferenced by other units. I think that answers that one.
Yes, sir. And then another question about officers attending who are completing blended ILE. I think the answer here is you need to be a graduate of ILE.
Yeah, there's really only one prerequisite for our course, and that is ILE graduate. And so we have a couple officers coming to us next year who have done a blended option, but ILE complete is ILE complete. That's all that matters.
And then on the back of that, is a graduate degree required to apply or recommended to apply to AMSP?
Nope, absolutely not. No, not a requirement. You will get a master's degree by completing AMSP. It is not a prerequisite.
Following the applicant theme, what tends to be the most important trends that we observe in successful SAMS or AMSP applicants as far as education experience?
We'll get Dr. Pfannenstiel, who does SAMS interviews. So go ahead.
Yeah, from my perspective, I think we're looking, the reason for the personal interview is to pick up on some communication skills, interpersonal skills, intellectual curiosity, emotional intelligence, the types of characteristics that would make 12 to 14 other people want to spend a year with you because you're together with these people in a room. I would say on the graduate degree question, any any opportunities you can take for writing. It doesn't necessarily have to be a graduate degree, but any opportunity to strengthen your writing is beneficial, not just for applying to SAMS because there is a writing component to the application, but I would say it supports the Army's Harding Project initiative. So any opportunities that you can take to become a better writer and start thinking through forming an argument, I think that would be beneficial, not only for a SAMS application, but in general.
Anyone else want to take that one? I would only add to it in terms of the application process. It's not just one thing. The interview is important, certainly, but there's no one thing. We look at the whole person. So how you score, how you write, how you perform on your interview, what your performance record look like, and what's your potential for promotion. All that is taken into consideration.
Another question on related to utilization. What are some examples of plans or projects a SAMS graduate will be responsible for at a division or corps? So I'll start, and then maybe Colonel Taylor might want to provide his perspective. So I landed in a G5. I think most of our billets in utilization are going to be in a G5 somewhere, Division Corps, ASCC. I worked on contingency planning for U.S. Cybercom as the Army element. But beyond that, I think SAMS graduates have a reputation for being able to work on like really hard problems. Like I mentioned earlier, that critical creative thinking to solve complex problems and build teams. So there was, anytime that we had a project that was short time fuse, difficult, ambiguous situation, we were kind of thrown into that and pulled together into either a crisis action team or some type of OPT. And so that's something that you can look forward to doing as a graduate, is being thrown into these. You get a good education here about that, and then you get thrown into these situations that you really can't even anticipate. Colonel Taylor, do you want to add to that?
Colonel McCool, thank you. I've already mentioned, in my experience, MDMP was a big part of that because we were in a war fighter. But outside of that, like Colonel McCool has said, I was the COVID guy during my division utilization, and we were trying to understand the effects on the division. And so the CG personally said, hey, I want you to show me how to track what type of effects does it have on the division? What type of effects does it have on the family? What do we need to think about? And that was a very complex problem. The other problem set that he gave me personally was, what does the division do, and how do those things matriculate up to me, and are we doing it correctly? Is it succinct? Is it flowing the way it should? And that's basically all he told me. I mean, it took him all of 30 seconds to give me his guidance and how to create and have me create a system or a visualization for the leadership to help us adjust in the division, the way information flowed, the way taskings were sent out, the way our lines of effort were joined. And so that was a difficult problem set, only because there's very little guidance, and you have to sit down and you have to brainstorm, and you have to use everything you use in SAMS, or is taught in SAMS, to be able to think through it, put it on paper, communicate it, and then action it. So those are my two experiences outside of typical planning.
Yeah, and I just want to add to it. So I mean, I was when I graduated AMSP, back in the olden days, within the first 6 months of my 13-month tenure as a planner on 1st Cav Division staff, here were the 4 problems I was assigned. Plan the campaign for multinational division Baghdad for a 12-month period. Write a white paper on whether Iraq was engaged in a civil war. Describe the operating concept for a joint security station, and develop a contingency plan for the evacuation of local populace in the event the Mosul Dam collapsed. So those are just 4 things I was handed within a 6-month period. And I would say nothing has changed with what SAMS planners are getting today to tackle.
Okay, another question back to building on our current students' discussion about kind of a day in the life of the students. This is a bit on preparation. So do the students arrive with a specific list or proposed topics to explore and write about, or do they get these things assigned, or how much ability do they have to select these things? Do the instructors help guide the students during the course based on their experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the answer is yes, all of the above. So some folks come in here, they have things that they're interested in, that they want to write on, that they just haven't had a chance, or they might want to build on some previous work. And we've had other folks come in and they're like, I have no clue what I want to write on. What we bring to you is sort of a wide variety of list of topics of interest. And so though we ask for you to pick fairly early in the course to get started, there is a little bit of room for adjustment as you move forward. But typically by the end of September, we kind of want you locked in to what your project is going to be. And then we go from there. So I would say it's a joint effort. Some people come in, they know exactly what they want to do, and they get on it and they get it done. Others, have a vague idea or none at all, but we can help you pick a topic. I have a whole bucket list. So if you don't have one, I got one for you.
We've had a couple of follow-up questions about clarifying the graduate requirements. So you do not need a graduate degree to get in here to apply to AMSP. Okay, and I think that's it.
I think there was somebody asked a question about finishing a civilian degree.
Oh, yeah. There was a question about if you're currently pursuing a master's degree in a civilian institution, is this something you can expect to be able to continue or finish while you're attending AMSP?
Yeah, I can speak from personal experience. So I arrived at CGSS. I did not have a master's degree. I knew I wanted to apply to SAMS, but I knew it was a selective process to get in. So I wanted to hedge my bets. So I did start a graduate degree, and I opted to continue it after I was selected and then in SAMS. So for my first couple of months of SAMS, I was finishing up my master's degree and doing the SAMS course load. I wouldn't recommend that. However, it was doable. It was still doable. Actually, it worked out where I was in a world-class library here at Leavenworth that actually helped me finish what I needed to do. So if you start it, I would recommend go ahead and finish it. It does not hurt, but it is going to be a little bit more work, but it is doable. It is not impossible.
Okay, a couple of admin questions about application. If you were up for promotion to lieutenant colonel, can you apply? The answer is yes. We have a few lieutenant colonels actually attending the program right now. So even if you are selected, you still can apply. And then another question about the additional duty service obligation for attending AMSP.
Yeah, it's the standard Army 3-for-1. For every 1 day you're in class, it's a 3-day, or the 3 days of ADSO. So that's how the Army computes it. It will run concurrently with some. Yep.
CGSC.
With CGSC. Yep.
Okay, Joe, how are we doing on time?
So I think that's all we've got for time today. That'll conclude today's formal brief. We thank everybody from across the force for dialing in and learning about the opportunities here at SAMS. If you were late joining today, this video was recorded and will be made available for future reference. We'd like to keep the dialogue open and ask that you check us out on our affiliated social media pages, LinkedIn, X, and Instagram. We also invite you to listen to the Operational Arch by using your preferred podcast app. The Operational Arch is a bi-monthly podcast produced here at the School of Advanced Military Studies that engages current and former leaders about relevant military history, future war, doctrine, and our favorite subject of all, operational art. We thank you and look forward to hearing from you.